pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Start with our activity reports. We had a police and fire advisory meeting last week. Went a little bit longer than I think many of us expected it would, but number of things to report on with that. You can see it on there regarding the part-time officers. Then discussed some trainings with the police and fire departments, making sure that everybody's working together nicely. And then talked about some of the issues facing the community as far as some resident concerns and things like that, and how we can address those. Other than that, that's all I had for committee meetings. I did meet with Tarek, Megan. Megan set up a meeting along with Chief Wagner with Lisa Damath to talk about some pending legislation and some things that affect the city a little bit as well, and I think that went pretty well. That's all I have. Turning it down to Neil.
Yes, I guess I had no meetings for the city. I did go to the gun raffle for support of the fire department yesterday. That was quite exciting, even if we didn't win. Then I read Mr. Bertram's email today that I think we all got, and I did check into chamber membership. For us, it's $35 a person, and I guess a strong chamber is good for the community, and I, for one, am going to join and recommend that for $35 we all do.
Thank you. Megan?
I had the AMPI negotiation board, the meeting you mentioned with Lisa Damath on Friday, and then I had a conversation with Brandon Peach regarding that same thing this morning.
Great. Jean?
I have nothing to report other than the fireman bingo too, and I didn't win either. So, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Paul?
Yeah, I'd met with Bill, Tarek, Ron, and Megan about coming up with a resolution for the AMPI sewer issue that we're having.
Right. And you're mobile, so that's exciting.
For the most part.
Yeah. Doing well?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Then going forward to our department head report, starting with Mr. Ludwig.
Yes, on your table, you'll find a liquor store update. Year to date, I put the last 3 years in so you could compare. It's tough to compare against 2020, but we're going to do it anyway. And so a lot of good things in here, a lot of opportunities in there as well. We've already changed several things going forward this year that we're seeing a better bottom line, which we all hope for. So anybody has any questions, I won't go through the numbers, but if you have any questions, stop out, set up a meeting, we can go through these. My liquor board has not, we're having a meeting the 15th, so we'll be going over them with our liquor board as well. But please get a hold of me. As you know, 2022 has already started and off to a good start. Sales are down so far year to date compared to last year, but that's industry, we're seeing that right now. So a little quieter January and February than a couple of years ago and last year. So 2 weeks ago, Tarek and I met with at the liquor store to review a website. We had a company that approached our association, MMBA, that builds websites so you can do online ordering. Customers can see what kind of product you have. I invited Tarek out. We reviewed Bagley was the first store to go live with this company. Very easy to navigate. Even I can run it. It's that easy. So to do a website, the cost is usually $3,000 to $5,000. This company is going to charge us $50 a month. There is no contract. The first 6 months are free. They make their money by a convenience fee of $3 per transaction if the customer orders. If a customer doesn't order, just gets on our website, we still just pay the $50 a month. The more people that get online with our association and do this, it's really good for the smaller stores. Our charges will be less. So it will be no greater than $50 a month. So we're going to be the second store to go live in the state. They started working on online today with our products, our data. So it's got pictures. It's super simple to navigate. So I'm kind of excited to kick that off. You talked about legislative stuff. We're going to the Capitol the 28th to go over liquor things. I encourage anybody that wants to go, you can sign up and I'll give you a ride down. We've got quite a bit of stuff controversial this year, the 3-2. We've got one liquor company that wants to be exclusive to where you can only go to them to buy Bacardi and not have other places to shop. So we got several items we're concerned about that we'll be dealing with. Also, I've been asked to be in charge of the prizes again for our conference coming up in the first part of May by MMBA. And like last year, they're going to pick up my tab of $700 for room and board. So I agreed to do that again and be in charge of the prizes, just so you're all aware of that. And St. Patrick's Day, we are going to have wine club. So we're going to get going with that again in March. So, a bit lengthy, I apologize, but that's what I have.
Might I just suggest if you have to find alternative storage for the prizes again this year, just have Tarek there with you when they're unloaded?
And the bill of ladings are always with me.
Yep.
So,
I was never worried.
yes.
Number 7, Bill, there's two 2020s. One of those must be 21.
Units per traction, yeah.
Yes, yeah, 2.7 is 2021, 2.5 is 2020.
Thank you.
So people purchased more at a time last year compared to the year before. So, and that has to do with the rewards program. So those people who use 49.8% of their transactions were greater. So,
All right, any other questions for Bill? Okay,
thank you.
Paul.
Thank you. Just a couple things. Give you an update on the hiring process. So when it was all said and done, we ended up with about 12 applications for the position. That was one from an extended period of time, but also some recruitment we did up at ALEC. Of those 12, we brought 9 of them back for interviews. 2 had gotten jobs with other agencies, and 1 they didn't respond to us. So we had conducted 9 interviews. From those 9, myself, Cody, and Tarek narrowed those down to 7. One of those individuals that was in that 7 actually was in the final process for St. Cloud PD. So we'll actually be doing 6 interviews tomorrow night for the police officer position. And then we'll kind of see how things go from there. I've touched on this a little bit with the sabbatical. Just wanted the council to know that we've been getting a lot of positive press and publicity from that, not just in the state. I've been contacted by several agencies outside of Minnesota, including Missouri and South Dakota, inquiring about it. It was picked up by Police One, which is kind of a national publication. There's an article in there, and they called me on last Tuesday, Wednesday, inquiring a little bit more about it. And so getting a lot of good publicity, had some conversations with Representative Damuth the other day about that as well, seeing what we can do to kind of get it more on a, state type level if possible. The courts and the county attorney's office are finally getting through some of our complaints. In the last 3 weeks, I've signed 8 felony drug complaints from cases over the last year and a half. Sheriff's Office is currently moving forward with a new RMS system. They're kind of in the exploratory phase at this point. They've got their bids in and kind of their RFPs back from the companies that they're looking to move to. I'm just bringing it to you guys to make you aware that at some point, probably in the next year or 2, the county will move over to a new RMS system, which ultimately there will most likely be an expense for us as a city. And then, as most of you know, we currently rent a storage unit from Lamb Labor Services behind the PD. That contract will be up with them. They need the space as of March. We've been in contact with Jesse Arman and Grant Leeser, about some garages that they have through a property that they purchased. So we're looking to do a lease agreement with them for 3 units right now and a 4th one, if it becomes available. That cost should actually be less than what we're currently paying, and should provide us a little bit more accessible space. But that'll be coming to you guys here as soon as they kind of figure their stuff out and get me something written up on it.
Okay. Any other questions? Yep.
Why do we need to rent garage space?
Because we've got, between our current vehicles that we have forfeited, the bicycles, all the surplus property that we never got rid of, that nobody ever bought, we need the space. I mean, we currently have 3 vehicles sitting in that garage that are up for forfeiture. And there's no place to put them around the PD.
Because at the end of the day, we're probably spending more than what we get back for rent.
Not necessarily. You know, I would have to look and see exactly how much we had, but last year. But between the forfeited vehicles that we've disposed of and other vehicles that were impounded and housed there, there were times when we would have seen about a $500 return for storage on vehicles. So you know, we're not making money off of it, but I don't know that we're really losing anything either.
Okay. Any other questions, Paul? All right. Before I forget and before we get to Ron, I just want to point out, since we were last in here for a meeting, there are pictures up on the wall. Tarek took the lead on working with Bernie Stang to feature some of her photographs in here. So these are all taken locally by Bernie. She donated the pictures to us. The city did pay for some of the printing, but she donated the rights and the display of them. So brings a little bit of color and life into an otherwise dull room, and they look fantastic. So thanks, Bernie, for that. So just wanted to point that out before I forgot. Ron.
Okay, thank you. First of all, this afternoon, we did have a meeting with the Safe Routes to School crew. Today's meeting was specific to MnDOT and the county, looking at the intersections on 55, Burr Street, Main Street, and part of the trail. Water temperature, still would like residents, remind them if your water does hit that 37, 38 degrees, please run it. If it does get cold at this point, the frost has gone down quite a ways. Also, last week, we did have our shut-offs. I'd like to remind residents that if you cannot pay your water utility bill, please come in and we will work with you. But once the shut-off time is passed, at that point, it is too late. You will get shut off. So, but we are willing to extend a hand and work with anybody out there. Spring cleanup, again, is going to be on the April the 30th. The Environmental Committee meeting does meet next Thursday, I believe it is. Compost site, again, will be open, weather permitting, probably the end of April sometime. Sidewalks, I noticed after this last snow, there's quite a few sidewalks that haven't been cleaned. A reminder to residents, please clean them up. And obviously, crews are out busy opening catch basins all day today, so the warm weather was definitely needed.
Yeah. All right. Any questions for Ron? Thank you. Mark.
All right. Yeah, and Sean and I, Megan and Paul also had that call with State Representative Demuth. And then as Ron mentioned, Ron, Chuck, and I had a call with the Safe Routes to School and had an update on that project. And also Paul and Megan, Bill Spooner and I, we had a meeting to discuss the AMPI negotiation. Chief Paul and I did the second group interviews last week, or the week before actually. And Sean, Ron, and I participated in the Stearns County Hazard Mitigation Planning meeting to discuss hazard mitigation and what projects we could plan for any future hazard mitigation in the city. And of course, then finally, the Police and Fire Advisory Board meeting. One thing I'd like to announce is that we are now administering for the DMV written testing, starting on this Wednesday, March 2nd. And this is for the instructional permit as well as the Class D licenses. It's going to be Wednesday only, and anybody that wants to make an appointment needs to come in City Hall.
Thank you. Any questions for Tarek? Ron?
No, just one comment on the safe routes to school. If anybody wants to get a comment in, please go online and follow the links there. They are still looking, or for another week or two, we'll be taking comments, so, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Tarek? Okay, we'll move on. We have our 10 minutes for public forum. If anybody wants to address the council on anything that's on the agenda or not. I know Brad's eagerly waiting to talk to us. Okay, I'm seeing no movement, so we'll just move on to the approval of our consent agenda, which includes the minutes listed there for the meetings on page 1, along with the vouchers on page 2, totaling $154,736.49. And looking for a motion to approve. And we, just to note, as a sort of scheduling matter, we do have our 6:30 p.m. variance meeting for Centricare. So we'll break at that point and open then. But now we'd be looking at a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I have a motion by Hertzberg. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Soini. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Oh, we didn't take a roll call vote. That feels good again. All right. Thank you for grabbing the microphone, Brad, on the Fire Relief Association with the contribution request.
So it's that time of year again. I'm Brad with the Fire Department Relief Association. Here to request the $5,000 municipal contributions for our special fund. That's the retirement account. It's been $5,000 for as long as I've known, and we're asking for that again this year.
Okay. So with that, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the contribution of $5,000 to the Relief Association.
I'll move to approve the municipal contribution of $5,000 to the Painesville Fire Department Relief Association.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Brick, seconded by Thielen, to approve the municipal contribution to the Fire Department Relief Association. Any discussion on that? Neil?
This is the same we've given for quite a few years, 5,000,
Quite some time, yes.
and that's what we budget for.
Yep.
And do the other townships also contribute a percentage, or how does that work?
They do not. The reason that we asked the city is because they're the largest municipality that we serve. And by state statute, you are then required to, if we were to become underfunded, it would be the city's responsibility to bring us into funded status. So rather than getting to that point, it's always been the idea that you would contribute $5,000 every year. It's easy to budget for. And then we never ask for that extra.
So the township's getting off scot-free.
Well, technically, no, because they do pay their share of the budget.
So part of that's in the, okay.
It's just not the township either, it's the other cities around, isn't there, like Lake Henry and Roscoe?
Correct.
Yeah, so this, yeah, but just to clarify so everyone understands, this is not money for the fire department itself, the operations department. This is the money for the Relief Association that supports retirement and other issues like that. So this is separately funded from the funding that goes to the fire department. And what Brad was saying is that by the statute, if the obligations of the Relief Association ever surpassed the value of the accounts, then the city would have to step up and contribute that difference to bring it into balance. So by contributing a small amount, the city's basically fulfilling that role on a smaller basis annually than one lump sum every 10 or 15 years.
You said that much better than I ever could.
Well, sometimes I can use words.
And I'm sure Councilmember Snyder remembers that
You
it
had
has
to.
been upside down on occasion when the markets get very bad. you know, then it looks bad at the end of the year. It has happened, it's been a long time.
Long time.
We've been on a good run for many years with markets, but could happen again.
I was gonna mention that, there was one time, a couple times we had to add to the fund more than the 5,000.
Right, and we did, as a fire department, through our fundraiser funds, contribute 50% of that at that time too, to help soften that.
Yep, I remember that.
You changed,
Brad, the gun raffle money, was that for relief or for operation?
That was earmarked, so I went to ask the Lions for a donation for our SCBA's, and they graciously gave us that $10,000, which went to the purchase of the SCBA's. And then they approached me to hold this gun bingo to also contribute that money for SCBA's. So that'll be earmarked, and that'll be coming back to the city
It is
in
earmarked,
regards to
okay.
our small equipment fund where the SCBA's were paid from.
Thank you.
the association recently changed investment funds, yes?
Correct.
How's that been going, or is it too early to tell?
So it's not totally done yet. We are meeting with him actually tonight after this.
So, hurry up so you can get out of here?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. I have a motion by Brick, seconded by Thielen to approve the contribution. All in favor indicate by aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries.
Thank you.
Brad. Okay, moving on then to the gambling permit for Cronus Ducks Unlimited, looking to hold a raffle at the Legion on April 7th and 8th, or 8th perhaps.
Because after midnight. I'll make the motion to approve the Coronas Ducks Unlimited Minnesota lawful gambling application for exempt permit to hold a raffle at the American Legion, Post 271 on April 7th, 8th.
Second.
I have a motion by Soini, seconded by Hertzberg, as stated on the action sheet to approve the Cronus Ducks raffle application. Any further discussion on that? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? None. That carries. All right, moving on to the Sledding Hill Cronus Golf Course, item C. Ron, can you give us a report on this, please?
Absolutely. The park committee had taken this up after a number of emails back and forth, and Bill drafting the license agreement here. This is what we have. I think their major concerns for the Cronus Hills Golf Course was liability and damage and some possible debris that got left after the season was over, but I think we got through all that, and in the agreement pretty much states that we will carry the liability on it and ensure if there is any damage, we would take care of that. It ends when there is insufficient snow for the year, and would begin again in the next fall when it does snow. Park committee did look at it and has made a recommendation that we approve it. I was in contact with the members of the Cronus Hills again today, and they're ready to move forward with it. However, they do not want it to take effect until next fall. So,
Ron, this is like a one-year agreement then?
no, it's continuous until they would deny it. And
Okay, so it's ongoing.
yes, it'd be ongoing. The only time it expires is when there's insufficient snow.
And do you have to rope this or plastic fence or what kind of control?
Really didn't get into that too much. The walking area going up there is very defined already. If they want some fencing, I guess, yes, we'll agree to put some fencing up for them.
And our repair is just the area that we're kind of, I believe it's number 2.
That would be correct, yes.
So if somebody goes with a snowmobile at the other end of the golf course, we're not responsible.
That's correct.
Is there gonna be any cost for the license?
Nope. Not unless there's damage to the area.
Okay.
And then, Bill, I presume that if there is significant damage to the area and the city's stuck with the bill and we decide we don't want this anymore, we can simply vacate our license at any time and
Yep.
no issues.
Yeah, we're not obligated, obviously, to use it, but they were willing to let us if we wanted to, and so, and I think, you know, the kind of damage that I can envision would be receding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, absent somebody going crazy, I would think that would be the worst it could be.
Right. So then if there's no further discussion on this, we'd be looking for a motion as to the.
I have one question.
Yes.
Is this gonna be year-round or just for the winter?
Just in the winter.
Just the winter, okay. All right.
I'll make the motion to approve real property license between the City of Painesville, Coronas Hills Golf Club Incorporated.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Hertzberg, second by Brick, to approve the real property license between the City of Painesville and Coronas Hills Golf Club Incorporated. Any further discussion on that? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. That does carry as well. All right, the summer concert series. Ron?
Yes, thank you again. Concert series, this has been going on for quite a number of years. It's been attended extremely well over the years. This year we're looking at the dates on the information were changed a little bit. It is from July 7th to July 28th, all in. And the Green Roof and the Rose Center will be doing all the concessions this year. So, again, the Park Committee has looked at it and they do recommend that approving.
Any discussion? Otherwise, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the use.
I'll make the motion to allow the Painesville Community Education to use Veterans Park Shelter Kitchen and outdoor seating at no cost. However, the city would be listed as a concert series sponsor for the summer concert in the park series to be held Thursday evenings from 4 to 9, July 7th, 2022 to July 28th, 2022.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Soini, second by Hertzberg, as stated on the action sheet, to allow Community Ed to use the Veterans Park Shelter Kitchen and outdoor seating. Any further discussion on this? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. Right. Ron, we have 3 minutes. Is that sufficient time to talk about the grant?
Sure.
Okay.
First of all, just out at the Ampey Park, the Park Board did take a good hard look at it. Our priorities out there, if you look at the comp plan, basically are the restroom storage area and shelter. Other things we do have planned out there, obviously, are the playground, expanding the sprinkler system, planting trees, benches, etc. Just getting right into the design a little bit. Restroom storage area. Seating capacity, we're looking at, it'll be about 65 people in there. It currently does have a kitchen facility in it. I saw Targ, he's writing the grant up, so if he wants to speak a little on the grant.
Yeah, there is a grant that we're looking for because obviously we'd want some kind of support in building this. We haven't gotten the solid numbers yet. We're estimating somewhere around, and maybe Chuck can verify, somewhere around 300,000, of which we're looking at a 50-50 grant, and the remaining 50%, we're hoping that we can get some community involvement, some from the city, as well as township and some of the other organizations around town, such as the Lions Club, to help support it. The grant that we're applying for, the funds will not be available, I think, for a year after that, which will make it 2023 would be the earliest that this could go up.
The Lions Club and the township have been contacted at this time, and they both said they would be taking it up. So, at this time, I guess we're not asking for any actions, but if any council member, anybody does have any comments, please get them to us. We'll be coming back to us for the last meeting in March for approval, at which time we will have to pass a resolution authorizing the application.
So we basically got to come up with about 150,000.
Correct.
And how much you have in the park fund that you'd want to?
The park fund CIP this year currently has 50,000 in it, and we do have 35,000 budgeted to come into it this year. So we're going to be looking at roughly around another 70,000 that we need to raise.
And I was thinking, when this gets closer, it wouldn't hurt to ask Legion, Sportsman, and possibly the community foundation that has all this money I read they have a deal in the paper where they're handing out again this year, but this would be for '23, but
Yeah.
recreation does qualify
Yes, it
for
does. Okay.
one of their criteria.
All right.
Do you like the design of what the building is? It seems a little bit out there, but it's a nice roof, I guess, over a picnic area.
That was the design that we discussed. It's kind of like an open plan.
Right,
Gives you
because
more
it's
seating.
summer use,
Yeah.
and this isn't a facility that would be rented to other parties,
With the kitchen facility, it very easily could be. Yes.
as long as there wasn't soccer, it'd be number one priority, I suppose.
And that's kind of with the open plan, there are a lot of parents there because soccer is
And it's
like the
hot.
little kids. Yeah, I've been there at soccer practice with my kids, it's pretty warm. So I think that was the thought, that having it more open so that they could sit there and watch their kids, but not, be sweating to death was kind of
Yeah.
the thought there.
Okay. All right, then with that, it is 6:31, so we will adjourn our business meeting at this time and go into our public hearing on the Centricare variance. We do have someone from Centricare, if you wouldn't mind just using the microphone at the back so that everyone can hear you. Just give us a little bit of idea of what this is about, what you're asking for.
Yeah, so good evening. My name is Dave Larson. I'm the executive in charge of facilities and support services for Centricare, so ultimately have responsibility over construction, which is the exciting opportunity here in Paynesville. We are looking to expand the existing hospital and do a renovation. With that, like many of our Centricare properties, we find legacy situations, as I call these, where we are here to request a variance to encroach upon a setback requirement that is in city code, some of which decisions were made before that code was even put into place. So back in the 1969 era of the construction, the building encroached what is, across now what is the required setback. So we would vary from the requirements of the zoning ordinance to that front property as defined in Chapter 36 of the city code. Just note for everybody, it is on the north side of the campus. What we're not doing, and is very obvious, is that MRI building greatly encroaches the setback. It is actually a separate subject for kind of a later day. What we're actually asking for is approximately 3 feet from what is the existing variance that was approved for the building to go over. So our construction is going to extend to the west of the existing campus. One of the things I really wanted to highlight here was it is our intention to bring that MRI magnet inside the building in a future project, which will, I think, really sort of greatly impact or reduce the protrusion out into what is the right-of-way. But one of the things that if you look at the imagery of our project, and I hope our design is kind of out there too, when you heard your comment about that, I like that, out there.
Maybe it dates me.
Yeah, the biggest thing I want to call your attention to is page 72 and then what is 71. The existing facility, as you look on that north direction towards First, is quite impervious in nature and very much a pavement and parking area. And if you look at the proposed pictures in 71, this is kind of looking towards the west, southwest, and then from the sort of northwest corner of the property looking back. Right now, that whole building is a parking lot. And what we're looking to do is construct the new inpatient wing and facilities there. Obviously, these are inpatient rooms. Privacy is of utmost concern for these folks in those rooms. We want to do our best to create a landscape buffer, and I think that will improve from what's currently there today. The property lines are running along this east-west corridor kind of vary a little bit, so that's why the variance we're asking for a couple feet, but it will vary depending which part of the building that it touches. So I hope that makes sense. That's what we're here to kind of talk about today, and if you have any other questions for me, this has been a long time going for this project. I've been working since Dennis Miley was here about getting a new hospital, and I'm so happy to say we're actually, from the Centricare side, we're past all the hurdles we need to. So, yeah, any questions?
Just one clarification. This is only for the building?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
Correct,
Only
just for the building.
On the parking, are we going to be losing parking, gaining, or?
The parking is obviously a huge concern on this campus. I can't speak to the exact net numbers of what we're gaining and losing. It is our intention, and if you look at the civil plan that's included, we are constructing quite a bit of new parking to the south and west. The helipad has to shift over in order to do that. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head. It will continue to be a tight campus when it relates to parking. That being said, with some of the future flexibility that's going on with the assisted or the nursing home, there will be future green space opportunities to look at additional parking, and those are in our considerations. I just can't speak to them today because they're not 100% approved, but as we look at the existing Coronas Manor facility and subsequently the potential of that moving off-site, we can really have more breathing room for parking.
Because right now, there's a lot of on-street parking that can be problem.
Yep, completely understand, and it is our goal to always be as sensitive to on-street parking with the neighborhoods that we really commingle with throughout most of our campuses, actually. So, no, I appreciate that concern, and we will continue to work towards solutions for that. I would say, though, during the construction, it's probably going to get a little bit worse before it gets better, but as we get to the finish of that facility, we really look forward to making that work.
Question for you, if in your plans for the foreseeable future, if the council said as a condition of granting this variance that the Washburn Avenue side, for example, would be considered for purposes of your facility to be the front side, would you see that as a problem, continuing to meet the setbacks on that side?
I don't think so. No.
I mean, I just think,
Right.
it's one of those, it's an odd situation by definition in an ordinance. They don't meet the setback because of that First Street side, but they would meet a side setback there, except for the location of the MRI unit, which that's different. I mean, we have a separate encroachment agreement related to that, so that's really not something to worry about. But it seems to me that that would be a condition that would kind of get us out of really having to worry about this in the future. Right now, we made them go through a variance application process because of the definition of the front, but I think if we just said going forward the front's going to be different for them, then they meet it, and then if we're looking at a variance, we can say, why are we looking at a variance? We agreed to do this, and I think then we can look at it a little more critically, but right now I think this is kind of a no-brainer, and they really meet it if we just call that a side, because all their other sides and rear are good.
Right.
I think.
That's the biggest, and you'll see it in the write-up, the complicating factor of this campus is schedule a meeting, say, I'll meet you at the front door of Painesville's hospital. And
Yeah.
right now, nobody knows where that is. We're trying to fix that.
Yeah.
So we did, as a council, get a letter that I just have to read into the public record before we close the public hearing, and then I'll also open the floor up for any additional comment. So the letter is dated the 23rd, received here at City Hall today. Dear Painesville Board of Adjustment, as a collective neighborhood, we support the requested variance for Centricare on First Street. However, we do have questions about the moving of the helipad. To date, Centricare has not reached out to any of us on Stearns Avenue regarding moving the helipad. It appears it will be moved much closer to Stearns Avenue and our homes. With this move, here are our concerns. Some of us have done remodeling projects that include new windows, siding, and roofing. What is the guarantee that Centricare will take responsibility if flying debris damages our homes, vehicles, and personal property? What if any of us or our friends or families are outside and get hit by flying debris? Currently, when the helicopter comes in, it shakes our homes, and they are talking about moving it closer. What will this do to the integrity of our homes? When the helicopter arrives, it is very common to have 4 or 5 vehicles drive down and park on our block to, quote, see what's happening, close quote. In the summer, you will also see multiple kids ride their bikes down our block to watch as well. What is going to keep them safe with the helicopter so close to the road and sidewalk? Thank you for your consideration of our concerns. We understand this may not be appropriate forum for this discussion. However, since Centricare has not reached out to us, we are hoping to reach our elected officials with our concerns. Signed, Belinda Ludwig, Bill Ludwig, Zach Ludwig, Michelle Aro, Sue Augustin, Steve Augustin, Dolores Hillslop, and Hattie McCann, all residents on Stearns Ave. So I guess, I know you weren't expecting this letter, but if you could address maybe some of those concerns since we're here, and I can give you a copy if it helps to see it before you go.
I have one here if you.
Sure. No, I can glad to answer some of those questions. So from my experience at Centricare, we have had incidents where a landing helicopter has actually damaged adjacent properties, mostly minor cosmetic, whether it be like vinyl lap siding that has come loose, or in one case in Redwood Falls, there was a property fence that was actually a residential wooden fence and the fence blew over. We have always stepped up and claimed responsibility for claims around that. Now, it has to be obviously pretty obvious that the helicopter caused it. If it was old, really out of current shape siding of some sort, we'd have to have a discussion. But we are always willing and wanting to take, accept responsibility for those helicopters if they've caused that. Now, to the comment around the disruption of just the active operation of a helicopter landing and taking off, what's included in your packet on page 75 is the proposed helipad location. It does move closer to Stearns Avenue. It meets both what the requirements for design, which is MnDOT Aviation Division sets requirements for helipads, as well as the FAA. You're required to have 2 landing and takeoff flight paths. That's those grids that you see. They have to be greater than 90 degrees of separation from each other. One of the things that I'm just candidly talking to the pilots, these flight paths are the documented approved path that MnDOT and FAA say. How they land is how they land, and they land in the most safe manner possible, and I understand that. One thing I've talked to a few of the pilots about in these dense residential areas, they do their best to power down to an appropriate safe level when it comes to their engine throttle when they can. I will tell you that they have to use their safety judgment every time, and I'm happy that they do so, and probably the record is the reason why they're so successful. But to that end, I appreciate the St. Cloud Hospital. Many of you have been there. We're in a very tight residential neighborhood as well. This is an ongoing issue. Paynesville probably averaged 9 to 12 landings last year. That varies all the time. So, we can have months where we have none, and we could have months where we have 4. So while I appreciate the disruption, I hope it is as infrequent as possible. And on the flip side of that, I also know that not that I'm not discounting this resident in their letter, but to have the ability to land a medical helicopter in this community is very important. Without it, they're going out to the airport, and that time and that distance may matter when it comes to stroke or a heart attack. So I won't be able to speak to that subjective nature of moving it this distance that we're moving it. Could be fairly minuscule on those impact of noise and vibration and wind. When compared to where it is today. It's very hard to predict. It completely depends which way the wind's blowing and everything. So I would say that the only way to completely resolve their concern is you have to move this helipad completely off the site, and that's not something we're comfortable doing.
It almost makes sense to put it behind the Centricare building on Lake Avenue, down by the ambulance garage.
Then you still gotta cross the road and make it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's time.
Yeah, and
It's
so
just
this is
comment
a
throughout.
great debate, and Councilmember Thielen, we've had this conversation tens of thousands of times, and what's interesting is if you just get beyond what is possible to wheel a gurney into the helicopter directly, now you're an ambulance ride. And if any of you have observed the activity of that, it just takes time to make that safe transfer, even from the gurney into an ambulance, from the ambulance to drive wherever, if it's Lake Avenue or if it's the airport, and then transfer again. And in the matter of stroke and heart attack, that can have an impact on outcomes. So I completely agree, and trust me, there's been many, I've had arguments where they won't even say that an elevator ride up or down is too long, and I'm like, well, we have to get them to surgery somehow, you know what I mean? So that is a very sensitive subject.
I've flown out of there about 20 years ago,
Sure.
so I understand. It is nice to have it that close, but, along with the growth is going to come some pain, so.
And Centricare wants to be the best neighbors possible, and to the comment from the letter, we will reach out to these neighbors. This is somewhat unrelated to this request of variance, so we're happy to do that. We'll gladly meet with them and go over their concerns and do our best to be a good neighbor.
Yeah, the purpose of the hearing tonight is to talk about the variance, not the helipad, but I thought, we have the letter, we need to talk about it. So I appreciate you reaching out to the neighbors so that we can keep having this conversation later. Anything to add from anyone here? Okay.
As long as they reach out, that
Absolutely.
makes us very happy,
Absolutely.
We are right.
because we are the house right directly across.
Perfect. We'll get to know each other quite well.
We will.
No, we're happy to do that. And in fact, someone bought a house next to St. Cloud Hospital this year, and I walked over and I knocked on the door, and they opened and said, we're your new neighbors. And they just assumed it would have been a residential house, you know, across. And I said, no, well, this side. And they're like, that the hospital? I said, yes. So we want to be good neighbors.
And have been thus
Yes.
far, absolutely. No problems.
In a parking like Neil talked, two of us have trailers back across, and it's so,
Sure. Hard to get through.
yeah. No, our neighbors would love it if you would talk, because that, nobody knew about it but us.
Sure. Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the variance? Okay, then I will close our public hearing. We'll go back into our business meeting. I am going to jump ahead to old business item E, talk about the variance request. We have an action sheet that we need to work through and answer some questions. So, looking at page 63 of our agenda, I will just read through it. Then when I get to each question, I will just call for an individual vote, and then I will ask for a motion on the entire thing once we are done. So, the Board of Adjustment City Council concludes, based on facts presented at the hearing, that strict enforcement of the zoning ordinance, and then calling for a vote that it would impose an undue hardship. All those that vote that it would impose an undue hardship, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those that indicate that it would not impose an undue hardship, aye. Hearing none, so that is 5 in favor of would impose an undue hardship. An undue hardship, as used in connection with the granting or denial of a variance, means that the property in question cannot be put to a reasonable use under the conditions allowed by the zoning ordinance. Economic considerations alone do not constitute an undue hardship if a reasonable use of the property exists under the terms of the ordinance. The Board of Adjustment concludes that the landowner's problem with its property and the reason for the necessity of a variance is due to circumstances unique to the property and not caused by the landowner, or not due to circumstances which are unique. All those who vote in favor of due to circumstances unique indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those who vote in favor of not due indicate by saying aye. It's 5 in favor of due to circumstances, option A.
Sean, I think it's important that you talk through the reasons, the because part of each of
Okay.
these. At least have something.
Sure. So, let's back up a second. Let's go back up to the would impose an undue hardship. There was a consensus that it would. Why is it going to impose an undue hardship? I look at, this would impose an undue hardship on the hospital in that we are slightly modifying an existing variance, slightly increasing it in a way that if we had a different front address or front of the building would not be an issue. So strict enforcement of the ordinance would be an undue hardship on the community as a whole and on the hospital, as it limits our ability to expand and modernize our hospital. This variance could help us increase citizens' health and benefits by allowing the hospital to expand in a manner that's reasonable, and therefore increase everyone. Anyone have any other thoughts on that? Okay.
Well put.
Looking that the landowner's problem is with its property, not caused by the landowner, I look at, because of that, sort of like I just said, this is an issue that's caused by the strict enforcement of our zoning ordinances. If we can define a formal front of the building, we may not need to do this. Clearly, that is not on the hospital, as far as I'm concerned. If anybody has any other thoughts on that?
No.
I think the other point that was made was that a lot of this construction happened before there was a zoning ordinance, and that's
Yes.
part of it as well, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So we also have the issue of already being somewhat grandfathered into a situation that would be really difficult to get out of. So then the Board of Adjustment concludes that based on the facts presented, that if the variance is permitted, it A, will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan, or B, it will not be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance and comp plan. Oh, thanks, Tarek. Tarek told me I need to back up.
Missed one.
Board of Adjustment concludes, based on the facts presented, that if the variance is granted, it A, will not alter the essential character of the locality, or B, it would alter the essential character of the locality. All those in favor of will not alter indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of it would alter indicate by saying aye. Hearing none, that's a will alter. Will not, excuse me. Option A. Looking at the reason there, again, I see it kind of like Bill talked about earlier. We already have an existing issue in place. We're not really expanding on that. And that, in fact, by granting this variance, I think we'll see some additional green space along First Avenue there that will actually make that neighborhood feel more residential than it currently does. Any other comments on that? Okay. Now, can I go on?
Yes. Need more coffee?
No, I'm still good.
All right.
It's warm. The Board of Adjustment concludes, based on the facts presented, that if the variance is permitted, it A, will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance and comp plan, or B, will not be in harmony. All those voting in favor of will be in harmony indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those that would vote will not indicate by saying nay. Okay. That is all for A. Intent or reasons there, again, we look at this is going to make that area feel more residential. We have an existing hospital. This is going to modernize it, bring it up to current aesthetic standards, increase green space, and overall fit the entire purpose of that area. Okay, no other comments. So then with that in mind, where we have voted A on all of the above and indicated the reasons, which I'm not going to recite, then the Board of Adjustment, having reviewed and reviewed the application for variance, and having taken public comment thereon, and having reviewed the recommendation of the Planning Board, and being fully advised hereby, all those in favor of granting the variance indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of denying, same sign. Okay. So then I'd be looking for a motion to approve the variance request for Centricare Health Painesville based on the findings that we just made. Yeah.
Would council be inclined to consider making a condition of the granting of the variance at the end of that page that for future purposes, Washburn Avenue would be considered the front, First Street would be considered a side, et cetera, around the property?
If by your opinion we can do that tonight, then yes, I would be so inclined to make that motion.
The only clarifying point is what we don't want to do is change our address.
I mean, it would just be for purposes of our zoning ordinance for any use applications in the future that Washburn Avenue would be the front. Then we have a situation where they're in compliance, and hopefully we could stay in compliance, and their building needs won't require variance. That's what I'm trying to get to. That's generally my goal with amendments to zoning, is to try to do away with the need for variances. I think we have, needing to do them is a problem that we should try to avoid where we can. And so if their future plans for development, if they don't foresee a need for a front side variance, I think it makes all the sense in the world to just say for zoning purposes going forward on this particular parcel, Washburn Avenue is the front side.
I think that makes perfect sense. Why don't we table that though for tonight so that Centricare can do its due diligence and you don't go away thinking, what if I got myself into a pickle?
I completely support exactly what he's talking about. I just got to be very sensitive to changing an address of a hospital that's been there as long as it's been.
Yes.
You can't even.
We can't change their address. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we're trying to change their
I
address.
just didn't know if all of your front yard or front setbacks are the address street.
That's the definition in our ordinance, but we would just be saying as a condition of granting this variance, we're saying in the future, for zoning purposes, the front side will be considered to be Washburn Avenue. That doesn't change their mailing address.
I'm fine with it being tabled, and we can both do some more due diligence, but,
does it need to be done as a condition of the variance?
Well, I think that's the
Cleanest
place,
way.
that's where I see it making sense, and then you know going forward that's the way that lot is configured for variance purposes.
Okay. If it's a problem, Brandon can let us know, or you can let us know, and we'll fix it. But I think if it makes sense, if we can do it tonight without really affecting you and save you problems in the future, then I would rather just get it done tonight.
I mean, we could specifically say that we're not attempting to change their mailing address.
Right.
I mean,
So long as we get the trust, it's unbelievable.
I can imagine all the places you'd have to put that.
Our payer people that see us and see, you know, man, they're like, you did what? You just changed the address, no big deal. Oh, you think so?
So with that, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the variance request for Centricare Health Painesville, conditioned on the fact that Washburn Avenue, for purposes of zoning only, Washburn Avenue be considered the front of the hospital, not affecting any address or other issues. Is somebody willing to make that motion? If so, indicate by saying so moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Jean.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Soini, seconded by Brick, to approve the variance request for Centricare Health Painesville, conditioned on consideration of Washburn Avenue as the front of the hospital, only for purposes of zoning and not affecting any other hospital operations. Any further discussion on that?
I just have a quick question. Do you know how many, if any, helicopters you have that are due to be replaced at any point coming up soonish?
Well, the only ones I can speak to are the ones that are LifeLink, which we are part of a consortium ownership group within LifeLink, but I'm
Okay.
sure North also lands here. I mean, it's possible other services land here. I am almost positive LifeLink is on its same fleet that it will be on for another 4 or 5 years, so I don't think there's any new ships planned,
Okay.
because they just upgraded a few years ago. And I only know that because I finally got to ride in one when they bought new ones.
Okay.
And it wasn't fun to ride in when you're really conscious and know what's happening. I'd rather be out cold on my back. When we landed, I'm like, we're gonna land on that, and it looks like just a pinhead on the ground, and it's not as smooth as you think. But no, so nothing in the imminent future, but I can find out.
Okay, I was just looking at, there's some studies done on the hearing loss of medical personnel who have to deal with them a lot, and it looks like the more modern they are, the quieter they get. So I just
Quieter,
wondered if
and
that was
their-
something that was
their motors
coming
are
up.
also less, I don't have a better term for this, but stinky. The Jet A diesel that they burn is it smells, and the newer ones are 50% better than the old ones, and I think they continue to keep proving it. And healthcare workers have the same issue related to those fumes that they're exposed to.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
When I rode down there, we landed on top of the University of Minnesota Hospital,
Sure,
and it looked like a postage stamp.
it does.
And then, yeah, it was very interesting in how they worked it.
And we met at the airport in St. Cloud, and they landed on St. Cloud Hospital's roof, and I said, you gotta be kidding me, when we were coming down, I'm like, let's just go back to that big flat piece of I know we can land on that, so thank you very much, everyone.
All right, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carries. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, going back up to new business, letter F, the park comp plan adding the Central Avenue property on page 24 of the agenda. Ron, can you talk to us a little bit about this?
Absolutely. The park committee did look at this, and obviously the council had looked at it last fall and had tabled it. The park committee discussed it, and just noting that we currently do not have any funds appropriated towards it, and likely will not have any in the near future, and we will be obviously a number of years before we do. Their recommendation is that we add it to the park comp plan. They feel that it would at some point in time make a very nice park or an addition to the nature park. But funding is going to be the issue. Realistically, we're talking at least 3 to 5 years before we could allocate funds, unless if some grant opportunity would come along. So at this point, the park board recommendation is to add it to the park comp plan.
So Ron, you initially told me about this when I popped in earlier last week, and at that point I had no concerns. I thought it was fine, but in thinking more about it, I'm wondering, Is this something we want to put on a 5-year plan and set money aside for if we're not willing and ready to eminent domain the property if there's no agreeable seller?
I guess I would not consider putting it in a park plan that we're actually, I mean, in 5 years it can be reviewed.
Yeah, we had a discussion as well, and on whether or not, because of the funding and stuff, and especially, I think when the park board was discussing it, they were saying, well, our priority really is to come up with a shelter for Ampey Park. But then they said, well, long-term, if we put it in the plan, then, you know, we don't know what it's gonna be like in a couple of years from now. At least then, if it's in the comprehensive plan, we'll be ready to go and seek funding and be able to do something then. But like Ron said, if we decide that later it's not gonna happen or we don't want to, we can revise the plan at that time.
I think the number one reason we'd want to put it on the park plan, if there is a grant opportunity that does come along, it's identified in here.
Yes.
And that would add a lot of points to a grant,
Yes.
knowing that we have looked at it and
It's on there.
And being on the comp plan, it's something you periodically would check or just review.
Because we felt it might be tied up in litigation for quite some time as well, so we didn't even know if it's something that the city should or could consider for a while, but we just kind of wanted to keep it on the back burner, I think.
Ron, there's title concerns with the second property, correct?
yes, that is
And
correct at this time.
It could be 2-3 years before that's cleared up.
We don't know.
Then on the other property, before we want to stick much money at all, I would want some borings or find out how polluted it really is.
Yes, we did have a conversation with the gentleman, and or at least he indicated that they have begun to clean it up.
Well, that'd be nice.
I mean, the soil, over the years, there's probably been a lot of oil spilled. So, depending on what kind of cleanup and how much, we don't want to.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion to add the Central Avenue property to the park comprehensive plan for future funding considerations.
Okay, I have a motion by Hertzberg. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Soini to add the Central Ave property to the comp plan for future funding consideration. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. 2022 Seal Coat Project. Ron?
All right, thank you. The Public Works Committee has made a recommendation here that we proceed with this, and that would be to authorize plans and specifications to Bolton and Mink. We did identify a number of streets here. Estimated cost roughly would be about $225,000. We do have approximately $400,000 in our street equipment fund, and that's where the funds would come out of. And let's see, the specs would remain the same as what we had previously had along with the fog seal. The fog seal really adds a lot to it. It completely seals the road off from letting any water penetrate the subsurface of the road, so that has become very popular. Chuck, anything to add?
No, we'd be looking at, getting it out for bid right away and hopefully have a bid opening at the end of this month on March 31st.
Are we projecting any issues getting people to bid on a project like this, given current market conditions?
We have not, no, we've been receiving bids, so I wouldn't anticipate we'd still get a number of bids.
All right. So with that, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the 2022 Seal Coat project plans and authorize advertising for bids.
Being as I made the motion at Public Works, I'll make this one too. Motion to approve the 22 Seal Coat project plans and specs and authorize advertisement for bids.
Our roads, thank you, Neil. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Thielen to approve the 2022 Seal Coat project plans and specs and authorize advertising for bids. Any other discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? Carries. Okay, old business, letter A, the MPC and benzene contamination. Tarek can fill in a little bit, but I'll start here. Senator Howe and Representative Damuth both introduced bills at the legislature to appropriate money for a study of the contamination in Painesville, Foley, Alexandria, and Blaine. Those were the 4 cities identified in the MPCA lawsuit. So that's why they're listed here. The study would send the money to Painesville. Painesville would administer everything, but the study would look at the contaminated sites in each of the cities and report back on what, if anything, needs to be done additionally, or what the current status and harm is. Senator Howe's bill has been scheduled for a hearing at the Environmental Committee on Wednesday. Tarek is prepared to testify virtually for that, to appear before that committee and give some testimony on it. I thought it would be appropriate if the city as a whole, as the council, if we would put our names and our support behind it for the reasons set forth in the letter, that it gives our residents peace of mind. We know independently that everything is safe. Our water is checked by the Department of Health, by MPCA. I have full faith in our public works crews to keep us safe and healthy, but I think some people do have some concerns, and this is just that extra verification that all is well. So I'd ask for a motion to send the letter, a motion to authorize Tarek to testify, and then a motion authorizing the resolution. The resolution might be a little bit unnecessary, but things happen at the legislature quickly. So this would just be a way to say, you know, if Tarek gets notice the night before that something's due for a hearing, he doesn't have to come back to council and ask before testifying or otherwise lobbying in support of the bills. So, anything you want to add to that, Tarek?
No, just that, yeah, I will be testifying this Wednesday. I prepared a small presentation. They said I have 5 to 10 minutes to give a presentation, and they would welcome a letter from council.
Any other discussion on it, or do we have some motions?
I'll make the motion to send the letter to the Minnesota State Environmental and Natural Resources Finance Committee in support of SF 2930.
Okay. I have a motion by Soini to send a letter. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Brick. Just on the letter to the committee in support of SF 2930. Any further discussion on that part of this? None? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. Great. Is there a motion to authorize Tarek to testify before the committee?
I'll make the motion to authorize City Administrator El Rafai to testify before the Environment and Natural Resources Finance Committee in support of SF 2930.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Thielen, seconded by Brick, to authorize City Administrator Al Rafai to testify before the Environment and Natural Resources Finance Committee in support of SF 2930. Any further discussion on that? None. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. That carries. And I'd ask for a motion to adopt the resolution 2022-08.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022, declaring the support of legislation promoting funding for water quality and safety study, authorize the mayor and city administrator to lobby for the same.
I have a motion by Hertzberg. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Soini, to allow or to advance the resolution as stated on the action sheet. Any further discussion on that part? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? None? That carries. All right, then just as a piece of informational on that, the Channel 5 interview I did a few weeks ago did air. Tarek has the link. Did you send it out to everyone?
I did. Did everybody get the link? If not, I will send it.
Okay. If you didn't get the link and you care to see it, you can ask Tarek. There's a really ratty windsock that's featured in the video. That's not ours. I don't know where they got it, but that's fake news.
It really was.
The interview was well done. It was a good story.
Yeah.
And then just everyone stick around at the end. We'll sign this letter so that it can get scanned and sent to the committee. All right, moving on then to the Pomeroy Avenue shop remodel on page 35. Ron, can you talk to us about this?
Absolutely. Just briefly on the project, first of all, we're going to remove roughly 2,000 feet of concrete, and reasoning for that, obviously, there's no,
Microphone?
thank you. There's no drains in this right now, and the floor is actually perfectly level. You've never seen a building that was on the level so much. But anyways, we need to get some drains in it. Obviously, we will be washing vehicles and other equipment in there. We're going to put 4 overhead doors. They will all be facing the west. Let's see, retrofitting all the electrical and the lighting systems. The lights are all the old T12 types, and they will obviously need to be replaced, updated to the LEDs. There's 2 boilers in there right now. One is the original one from the 70s, and when the addition was put on, there was another one in there from the 90s. Both the people that we talked to, they highly recommended just getting them out of there and going to what we have recommended on here. 2 restrooms, I guess we looked at, were questioned pretty intensely by the Public Works why we need 2. Well, obviously, this building's going to be put up for the next 20 to 30 years. We're going to be there. Currently, we do have 1 female over there, and the chances of us having another one are likely extremely high. You know, you do see a lot more women getting into the water, wastewater world, so that is always a possibility. Locker rooms and a break room. The existing break room will become a storage room. New mechanical room, the fire suppression that has already been removed. Installation of the HVAC units, and replacing some inefficient and non-working. The windows are all original yet in there, so we'd upgrade them and replace the service doors also. Getting cost has been an extremely challenge for us here. First of all, on the concrete and on the plumbing, they will be coming to us probably the last meeting in March. I hope to have that all completed and those prices for it to you. On the electrical, Precision Electric was the low at the $17,895. On the carpentry, we were only able to obtain 1 bid from Ron Mayer, and that's at $28,800. We did talk to a number of others, all the local ones that we could come up with, and they all indicated they did not have the time to do it. And on the materials, both Bork and M&M did give us a price, and the low was Bork at the $37,475.61, and the door installations was Bierman Garage Door and Service at the $10,835. Total cost at this point for all of these here items would be $94,897. They would be divided up into the water, sewer, and street CIPs, which currently the water CIP has the $550,000, the sewer has $594,000, and the street is just over $100,000 there. So we do have the funds to cover it. Estimated on the concrete and the plumbing will be very close to $100,000 also.
So far, we're still within your initial remodel budget, yes?
Yes,
Roughly?
yes.
Okay.
And by far cheaper than building new.
Oh, yeah.
3.5 million that we talked about, so.
I'm still leery and skeptical about the need for 2 bathrooms. I share one at home. We share one here at City Hall. The new bathroom construct is going to be what, 15,000 per bathroom? And 15?
Probably 10.
I'd prefer, I mean,
You're currently sharing one at the old facility.
Correct. If you want us to take it off, I guess we surely can take another look at it, and, you know, we don't have the prices for the plumbing yet, so that can be revamped a little bit. It's,
I guess if there were a need for it based on the number of employees that we had, that there was just that much use for it during the day, I would have no problem. But just saying that we need to have 2 because we need to have 1 for men and 1 for women just seems like an outdated concept and not a wise use of money, in my opinion.
Well, are they going to be like single bathrooms like we have at the liquor store? Are they going to be like, what are you talking?
Well, it would be,
Just-
yes, it would be a single bathroom.
Okay. Well,
I know 10,000 is 5% of the total budget, but that's still 10 grand, and I guess I don't know that it's a compelling reason to have two. I'd be in support of moving forward, but minus the bathroom.
You'd hate to come years down the road to have to put another bathroom in.
I would too. I don't deny it. No? Want to make the motion move forward as presented?
I'll make the motion to move forward as presented.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the bids. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the bids by Thielen, seconded by Brick. As presented here on the action sheet and in the forms, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Nay.
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 That does fail.
I'll make the motion to the remodel quotes presented except for minus one bathroom.
I have a motion by Soini to approve as presented minus the bathroom. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. That does carry. Thank you.
How soon will we be able to start on the project, or?
Well, we will get the doors ordered, hopefully by the end of the week. They have about a 3-month lead time right now,
Let's see.
so
I know my sister.
It's gonna be a
just ordered
process.
garage doors, and they said it'll be 8 weeks, yeah.
We can get started and we might be done by the next decade or so.
Next year.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. On to the irrigation and sodium chloride. Ron, do you just want to sit here?
we recall last year, we did have some crop damage, and a little bit of discussion, is that mostly caused by the drought, or was it caused by our chlorides? Obviously, part of it was due to the chloride issue we had, probably magnified from the drought. Most of the farmers we work with have been very good about it. Crop yields obviously were a little low. Most of the farmers that we work with, they did also incur some costs just from soil sampling. They initially did some, and they came back and found it actually very beneficial. They did some grid sampling. By doing the grid sampling, they probably cut the amount of gypsum that they're going to be applying by probably 100 pounds per acre in some spots, saving them quite a bit of money. Public Works did look at this and felt, yes, they did incur some costs. They're looking at some more, and the recommendation here is to reduce the amount that they pay per acre by $10 per acre for the next 3 years. By doing that, our budget would need to be reduced by, total cost is $12,495.
Ron, do you believe this problem will be over in 3 years, or it's something that we'll have to revisit?
No, this problem will not be over in 3 years.
Right.
If you look at what's brought forward from the Public Works, there's 2 of them already. You know, to take care of the problem 100%, the city would have to install a lime softening plant or a reverse osmosis plant to treat 100% of the city water. You know, we'd be talking somewhere north of $20 million. That's just not feasible right now. Just in conversations with the MPCA, they kind of came back with one of the best options is, you know, tell them to plant crops that are resistant. Your corn and all your alfalfa is very resistant to chlorides. So at this time, that's somewhat the direction we're looking at. If we find that there's some huge grant out there where we could go a different direction, we can look at it. But at this time, Yeah, it's gonna be for sure 3 to 5 years before we can get things turned around, looking at the dollars that we're talking about.
So this could be revisited in 3 years.
I would say it will have to be revisited in 3 years, yes.
And have you talked to the farmers that
Majority of them, yes.
this is acceptable?
This is acceptable, well, they'd like more. Some of them said,
Well, don't we all?
yeah.
Well, with that, I'll make the motion to approve the $10 reduction in cost per acre for 3 years with the current city renters less pivot 22, which will stay the same.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Brick, to approve a $10 reduction in cost per acre for 3 years with the city's current renters, less pivot number 22. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? None. That does carry. All right, on to the hiring of part-time police officers. Ron, I'm sorry, Chief.
Ron would like to talk, he kind of,
It's
doing great, so.
Good habit.
Thank you. So, as we know, we currently are down, essentially 1.5 police officers. We may, we may end up going down another one. We don't know for sure whether or not that is or is not happening. So we've kind of tossed around some different ideas as to how we can continue services to the community as we have. One of those, and as we got looking at it, and as I got looking at this, there were 2 options. One, bringing in some people that we know that have worked in the area or have had interest in our department in the past to come in and assist on a temporary basis, working part-time. The other was to, reach out and see what maybe Stearns County had as far as availability to do this. When I got looking at this, even if we were to bring every officer in to the department at the top of the scale, we might be looking at anywhere between $35 to $40 an hour. In doing my research with this, the county's current rate is $55 per hour to have one of their guys come in and contract. So initially I looked at this and, reached out to a few people that I thought might be interested, reached out to the sheriff's office to discuss them allowing their staff to come and work for us part-time. They obviously know the area. It's a very simple fix to bring them in. It's a matter of buying them a pair of pants, a shirt, and potentially a vest carrier for them to put their vest in. But our costs are minimal. Their departments hold all their licensure, they hold all their training, all of that. We would qualify them here per the sheriff's request. But I'm kind of looking at, in discussions with police and fire board, potentially a hybrid model. I think it's important that we have our own people. I think the city, they expect a Paynesville officer to show up, when they call. But there may be times when we don't have that availability, which may be beneficial to have, reach out to the sheriff's office and see if they're willing to pick up those times that we can't cover those shifts ourselves. So more of a kind of last resort type thing as far as a contract with them, which is why at the police and fire board, I had said that this should come to the city just for, the city council for general discussion and as far as the contracting goes. But as far as tonight goes, I would be looking for authorization. The city's personnel policy allows the city administrator to appoint people in order to keep a continued service to the citizens. These are individuals who are not rookies. The ones that are on this list, Carter Lynch obviously has worked for us before, is currently a full-time officer with Alec PD. Adrian Langers was our top applicant, but ultimately chose an agency which she was already working part-time for to go full-time.
I got a question for you, Paul. Was that the one with the dog?
Yes.
Would that be coming with her?
No.
Okay.
We don't have the equipment for that anymore.
Okay.
Did you tell her she's not forgiven for turning us down?
I have. I've reminded her of that a few times. But she's expressed interest in coming and assisting. You know, they work 11s or 12s, so she's got half of a pay period off. And in her words, she doesn't have much to do, so. And then Chad Memkin is a current deputy with Stearns County. He is, I believe, one of their SROs right now, but he's got over 10 years of experience in with the sheriff's office. I think he's closer to probably 10 to 15 years in. She's pushing over 10 as well. So these are people that are coming with the significant amount of knowledge, a little bit of, maybe one day with either myself or Cody or Dallin, to kind of get the lay of the land and how we operate is about all that is going to be required to bring them in here.
There's a rumor percolating throughout town that we are losing another one. Have you heard anything official on that yet?
I have nothing official.
Okay, so I'm putting that rumor to rest now. We don't have anything official on that.
There's nothing official.
Okay, well, I'm trusting you. I'm just saying that was the rumors for it. That's why I'm asking.
No, and I wish we had an official answer.
Yep.
We don't, so.
That's fine. And I think the advisory board talked about how we need to sit down with the sheriff and talk about options. We don't know if that's going to be more expensive or less, if that's the best way to do it or not. We haven't gotten any firm details yet. So I guess my position would be that we hold off on this until we can get a sense of pricing from the sheriff on doing anything. And that we have that meeting before our next council meeting and then come back on all of this with a full picture of what information is out there, so that we know that we're making the best. I'd hate to get sort of shoehorned into one solution when there might be things that we haven't fully considered.
So we don't have numbers from the sheriff?
Not firm numbers.
When I called them on this, they said it's $55 an hour.
55 an hour.
That's our current contract rate for cities that contract their services, for police services,
Okay.
not for like special events and that sort of thing.
And do we have a basic cost for the 3 officers mentioned?
Even if they were at the top end, we'd be less, it would be less than or around $40 an hour.
Okay.
We figure about 23% when we calculate TZD. Our current rate is 31 an hour. So add 25% to that. That would be generally where your costs are. There's some maybe clerical stuff, but we're talking a couple $100 maybe between uniforms and setting them up in the system. My request would be to look at both avenues. I understand what Sean is saying, but I think having both options in our kind of in our quiver is our best bet.
How would both options work?
Generally, what we would look at is I would, depending upon the number of people that we'd bring in, I got another email tonight from another deputy, so there may be even a 4th one. We would put the schedule out, open it up to the staff and to those part-time officers, see what they want to work and when they can work. And then any holes that might be in that schedule, we'd reach out to the sheriff's office to fill those other holes that we might actually have. So in theory, we may not need their services. In theory, we may need them. A lot can happen. We still have COVID sitting out there, so heaven forbid, but if somebody gets COVID, then, we may be down somebody and not everybody may be able to pick it up. So we would be looking at, maybe having a few more holes. I firmly believe that with the 5 and potentially the 6th one, that we would have between Steve, Jerome, and these individuals, I don't know that we would ever need to go down that road, but it's nice to have that in our back pocket just in case.
What would happen to our work comp insurance if we did the part-time officers?
I'm not sure how much that would go up. Belinda hasn't necessarily given me that. I don't know that would be much, but in that 25% that we figure, like with TZD, is a percentage of what we would pay for work comp for that insurance. So, I mean, that 20-some percent that we're figuring for that includes the additional work comp for the hours that they're working.
So my understanding, Belinda checked on it last Thursday for me, our work comp wouldn't necessarily be affected until our renewal period. But if this is a temporary solution to have part-time officers, we could be looking at a 2023 budget that has to consider a higher work comp number because we might have 5 or 6 part-timers employed that we're only going to employ for a few months of 2022. So I think that's something we also need to, and again, I'm not saying yes or no, but we need to consider all of the information in making a decision. And I don't know, is the county willing to work with us on sort of just an as-needed basis if we do a hybrid approach? That's, again, that's why I just think we need to have the meeting to get the information.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we also are potentially in a situation where we may need these individuals. It's going to take some time. You know, Carter's obviously an easy fix. I don't have to do anything with him other than give him his uniforms back. You know, but we do have a little bit of delay in there, and depending upon what may or may not happen, we may need those people.
One question on the sheriff at that, you said 55?
Yes.
Do they use their own squad or do they use ours?
That would be their squad.
So that's a little savings too at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Depends upon how expensive gas goes.
Well, squads are spendy.
It would also be
Just
their
something to
work.
look at.
Yeah, it would also be their work comp if there was an injury. Oh,
So you gotta look at the whole package, not just the 55.
right.
Exactly.
Because if they were injured, you know, if they twisted a knee or something like that out here, that could cost the city a whole heck of a lot over the course of a few years in a work comp claim.
What about litigation?
If they were contracted, then anything that happened, they're county employees. But if they're part-time officers who engage in some litigation against the city, then it's going to be our pocket.
So there's a lot to look at the scale.
Yeah.
Although-
I would just prefer that we sit down, we get a firm offer, firm information from the sheriff, and then make a decision based on all of the information so that we're not speculating on some of the finer details. Because we might know the hourly rate, we don't know for sure that they have. Chief, you've raised concerns before about their ability to staff out here. Maybe that's still an issue. And that's something we need to talk about before we just submit or accept the solution here.
I think there are advantages and disadvantages to both, so.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you want a motion to table?
Yeah, I think I'd like to do it.
I'll make that motion that we table till we can have more information.
Well, let me take a step back. Do you want to make a motion to approve meeting with the sheriff to discuss options first, and then tabling the rest?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the mayor, police chief, city administrator, and board chair meet with Stearns County Sheriff to discuss contract rates and options.
Okay, so I have a motion by Hertzberg. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Thielen, to approve the mayor, police chief, city administrator, and the board chair of the Police and Fire Committee to meet with the Stearns County Sheriff to discuss rates and options. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. Neil, then, did you make a motion to table the rest?
I will make the motion to table the other sentences here.
Okay. I have a motion by Hertzberg to table the remainder and bring back at the next meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
second by Soini. Any further discussion on that?
Just so you know, I will not be here at the next meeting.
Can you zoom?
Can you call in?
I will not be in a position to do any of that.
What?
I'll be in the middle of the Caribbean.
Okay. All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 All opposed? None. And we have our informational, which includes the MnDOT Rails Crossing Project, garbage rates, and the meeting schedules there. All right. That is the end of our business, and we'd be looking at going into closed session, but I think a brief recess might be in order before we do that. So before we take a recess, I'll just note that when we come back, we'll be going into closed session to discuss attorney-client privilege discussions relating to the AMPI sewer underbilling and pending or threatened litigation relating thereto. With that, our business meeting is adjourned or recessed for the moment. You have more? Was there more?
She's good?
Okay. All right, so we're back in at 7:56 PM. We met in closed session for a few minutes to discuss the threatened or potential litigation. We gave the city administrator and public works manager some marching orders regarding a range for negotiation with an expiration of that authorization at the end of April, so that we can regroup first part of May and revisit if necessary, but hopefully we'll have it resolved by then. Okay? With that, we are adjourned.
Can I have your sheets back?
Sure.
Oh, I made notes on mine.
Go back.
Well, I recommend that I keep them.
I do too, because
Shorter meetings.
Yes.
the thing